Ask the Mayor, your chance to ask the Mayor of Weymouth, Bob Hedlund, questions about the town of Weymouth and or anything else that you have concerns about. Ask the Mayor is pre-recorded. And now, here's Bob Hedlund.
Welcome to another edition of Ask the Mayor. Thanks for joining us. And once again, our citizen advocate / inquisitor is still with us. He's really taken the St. Patrick's Day spirit to another level by once again continuing to wear the green tie, even though it has maybe passed by the time we're airing the show. Maybe not.
Top of the morning to you, Mayor.
Maybe not. Could be in reruns. You never know. So.
Did you ever used to go to the St. Patrick's Day breakfast in Quincy that they had that political kind of hoo-ha?
No, but I went early in my career to the South Boston one when Bill Bulger was Senate President.
Oh, boy.
And when it was at the Bayside Club.
The Bayside, okay.
Talk about a fire trap disaster waiting to happen. You had to go up a fire escape to get in the back, and eventually, that was moved over to the Ironworkers Hall, and then now they run it over at
the Convention Center.
Convention Center.
The last few years, I actually was helping out Jackie Hart.
Right. It's become it's less organic, and it's just like a slick production. It's everyone hires a professional comedian, write these things, and it's just become too antiseptic, almost in some cases not funny, and I couldn't go anyway because a tradition developed here on the South Shore, which has been wildly successful. We have a St. Patrick's Day parade in Scituate. And one little quick anecdote about that.
Fantastic parade. Get there if you can.
Yeah, it's good.
Go every year.
It always seems to be very cold that day.
Yeah.
But funny story, I blew it off one year and I went to Florida. And I was sitting poolside. It was very cold up here for the parade. And I was sitting poolside in Florida. And there was an older guy sitting next to me, didn't know him. And he looks at me and he goes, "How you doing, Senator?" I said, "Oh, great." The guy must have been from up here. And he goes, "How come you're not at the parade today?" And I
bagged.
said, yeah, not only was I bagged, it was an active member of the Scituate Chamber of Commerce who founded the parade when it was started out as a neighborhood event, and there he was. Talk about getting caught.
The sense of community down there in Scituate's fantastic.
This guy just died. You're going to know who he was, and I'm blanking out on his name right now. Jim Campbell.
Jim Campbell.
He was the first fan put in the Patriots Hall of Fame.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah,
he just passed away, and he was an original season ticket holder. His season tickets were right down low on the 50-yard line. And they put him in. It was in his obituary. The first fan put in the Hall of Fame.
I go down there every year with my
Patriots
family.
Hall of Fame. Patriots Hall of Fame.
We saw Patrick O'Connor marching there last year as he was enhancing his candidacy, and I end up standing beside Jay Kennedy of Kennedy Carpet Cleaner, a big fan of yours.
You were Kennedy, O'Connor. You're all
I'm at the right parade, that's for sure. Listen, a little melody anecdote very quickly. The host of the St. Patrick's Day breakfast in Boston is the senator from the district, who was my grandfather 100 years ago, Patrick Melody. And I bumped into Linda Dorsina Forey last year down the Cape, and we made that connection, and that's the connection I had with Jackie Hart for years as well.
So we got to get right into the questions,
Sure.
But we got one bit of house cleaning we got to straighten up. Last show,
the big inquiry from the trivia.
We're supposed to be the two pop culture mavens here, you know.
Two.
And how did the reference come up about Cool Hand Luke?
Chain gang. We were talking about the prisoners working down at the.
We had a question about using some of the community correction personnel as opposed to convict labor, and we both thought of Cool Hand Luke at the same time. And I think what I said was, when people say that kind of labor, they conjure up an image of, guys in the chain gang and all that, and then we reference Cool Hand Luke, and I think we botched it. Because we had a quote. First of all, we couldn't think of the quote, and we finally thought of the quote, and then we had the wrong person.
We attributed it to George Kennedy.
Exactly. So I think that they're going to throw a little snippet in and straighten us out. I don't even know who the actor was that said it.
He's been in 100 movies.
That guy?
Yeah,
I didn't recognize him.
Actor.
I didn't recognize him.
Okay. And would you like to? I was going to make you do the impersonation.
I'll tell you what, we won't do the impersonation, but they're gonna splice a little in. So we want to straighten that out.
It's actually a segue to the first question. So do you mind if I offer the quote? The quote was, What we have here is a failure to communicate.
Okay. And that's a segue.
To segue to the first question or comment of Ask the Mayor, our new episode is connected to communicating, apparently, with the viewers. And this one comes from Jim Richmond. Jim, I love you, no matter what. Jim's comment was, it was a pleasure watching the last episode, which was referring to the first episode of the year, the one where Mary Heinrichs was our substitute host.
So 2 episodes ago.
So it was a pleasure watching the last episode, 2 episodes ago, with a new person helping. I do not enjoy watching the show with his regular host. The quote is...
hold on, I interrupt you. I want to make sure you repeat the question.
I do not enjoy watching the show with his regular host. That would be yours truly.
The whole question again.
Well, it's not really a question. It just says, it was a pleasure watching the last episode with a new person helping.
A new person.
A new person.
Okay. A new person helping.
She's the oldest person involved.
Now
in
the second
mix.
sentence. Let's hear that.
I do not enjoy watching the show with his regular host. That would be me. Too much talk, not enough time spent on questions. A common complaint by the owner, the producer, and the host of the show.
And that complaint will not change if we're splicing in movie references and things like that here today.
But I'll be the fall guy. So it was nice working here at Ask the Mayor.
So Jim, you are, I'll remind you, the Citizen Inquisitor, so you might want to take Mr. Richmond's suggestion to heart a little bit, and let's, like a laser beam, baby. Let's
inquiring more.
Let's focus.
Well, then, if that's the case, of course, what's the number one issue on the minds of most of the Weymouth citizens, especially the North Weymouth crowd? What the heck's happening with Spectra? Any updates for our viewers and the citizens?
Does this come from a citizen?
No, this is you putting the boots to me to be more of an interrogator.
Great.
So when I'm ready to go.
Yeah, well, the only update since the last show where we talked about it, I would say, is FERC has issued conditional approval.
Approval of
the
construction
station.
of the plant.
Yeah, of the compressor station. So, again, to get into all of the nuances of this and all of the steps the town's taking would consume a couple of shows, but the short version to your question is the conditional approval is based on a few things in there. One, most important from the town's perspective, where we have the most hope, is that it requires coastal zone management approval under I can't cite the actual statute off the top of my head right now since you threw this curveball at me, but it has to be a water-dependent use, and we claim that the gas compressor station is not a water-dependent use on that site. So under the CZM guidelines, that site has to remain a water-dependent use. So that's where our argument lies.
Clever.
And we're also appealing the FERC decision. So we have to, and we just filed that last week at the time of this taping. If you go to the mayor's Facebook page, Bob Hedlund Mayor, we have a link to the 191 pages in our appeal.
Wow.
If you have nothing to do some evening and you want to read up on this issue. And we don't expect FERC to accept our appeal. They'll probably deny it. And then that gives us standing to go to federal court. But we can't go to federal court without the denial of the appeal.
What about the sale of the
land?
Sorry for interrupting you. What about the sale of the land? I know that became an issue a couple of months back.
Well, a lot of people think that there's some action we can take, and we're suing them based on not following procedure on the sale of land, but we've been advised by town solicitor, outside counsel, that there's not a lot we can do to stop the sale of the land, and if we did, they can use the eminent domain powers that they have, which are pretty strong under the FERC regulations to get the site. So there's not a lot we're going to be really able to do to stop the transfer of the sale of the property.
Well, thanks for that update. And I know
people don't want to hear that,
yeah.
but don't shoot the messenger. We try to give you the facts in a realistic way.
I honestly Googled this about a year ago, and I don't think any community has ever fought harder or stronger against the implementation of one of these plans.
No communities had one cited with the neighborhood characteristics being what they are, and certainly no community has taken the novel legal approaches that we have under the leadership of Town Solicitor Callanan. So
I think you should be proud, and all the citizens should be proud. Everybody came together to fight against something that they don't feel is right. And that's what community action is all about. Well, listen, going back to the heritage of our fair town, question came in from Emily Sutherland in South Weymouth. She is referencing the fact that as one of the oldest towns in the Commonwealth, we have a strong colonial heritage. And as we move forward on the development of the Weymouth Landing, will we be keeping that colonial feel to the entrance to Weymouth? The gateway to Weymouth is the Weymouth Landing. Yes. I don't know if I ever felt the colonial feel down there. That's G.O. Mill Grill.
Well,
after 10 or 12.
Well, I guess if you look at the DeLagus lot, maybe that looks like what it looked like in colonial times, an empty stretch of land. I don't mean to be a wise guy, because I know people feel very strongly about development. People feel strongly about design. Everybody's an amateur architect when you have a development in their neighborhood. And there's a divergent school of thought on what is aesthetically pleasing.
Sure.
And
beauty in the eye of the beholder.
I mean, people were critical of the Katzen project in Braintree, which is in Braintree. Some people I meet in Weymouth still think that's part of Weymouth, by the way. It happened to me today at a school. But, you know, throwing one little hip roof on one corner of the project doesn't make it a colonial feel when you're popping 172 units on a postage stamp lot. So, I am not sure. I would have to understand what the person's definition of a colonial feel is.
You know,
and I'm not an architect, so I guess I don't know if, you know, I want to make a joke here, but I won't. You know, colonial feel, a log cabin. I don't know. No, but
thatch truths.
You know, I will say this. There's 4 projects that have come into the town as of the time of this taping. 2 are before the BZA, and 1 is imminent before the BZA, and 1's further down the road. And they're all on Washington Street or Commercial Street in Weymouth. I find 1 modernistic. I think it fits with the site, and I think it's aesthetically pleasing. Others, you know, I don't think they're as nice, but do you want to have 1 modern building and 1 colonial? And if you're talking colonial, where you have, you know, this old mansard style building that hosts a nail salon, at one time that was a nice design. I don't think that does anything for the aesthetics of the landing right now. So everybody's got an opinion. We're not all on the same page, and this is one of those issues where you can't please all the people all the time. But I can tell you one thing: we need redevelopment of the landing to go on with empty storefronts. If you go down the landing now, you got a boarded up house up next to the gas station. You got an empty old fire station, even though it's aesthetically pleasing. There's no tenants in there, it's empty. Western Auto, empty, abandoned right now, sold. You got the old cab stand, empty, basically abandoned. You got the whole DeLagus strip, a huge site, a hole in the ground. You got just all kinds of economic stagnation down there. So we want good design, but we want, certainly the marketplace dictates certain things, and property rights dictate certain things. And the fact is, the overlay district was vetted back in 2010, a lengthy process leading up to that approval in 2010. And that kind of zoning supports certain kinds of buildings. I don't know how you do a colonial style building with, I'm serious. I don't know how you do necessarily a colonial style building with retail on the first floor with residential units above. That's hard. So that's why it points more towards the design submissions that we're getting.
Yeah, I don't mean to poke fun of them either, but anybody who's been in this town for even 12 months knows that whole area has been dilapidated for so long that any improvement, any change, I think would be regarded as positive. And
well, not any. Nice. I mean, I'm not happy as someone who's the steward of Weymouth right now, looking at the monstrosity rising up out of Braintree, where we're going to get a lot of the impacts from that, and we get no benefit from that. We don't get an economic benefit tax return or anything on that. But it's nestled in a little corner of Weymouth, 172 units.
Is this down on the landing?
And here we are. We're going to have a situation in Weymouth where it takes longer for us to go through an approval process for 22 units, than it took Braintree to approve 172 units. And at the rate we're going, you're going to have approval, or permitting, approval, and construction of 172 units longer than it's taken us to get the DeLagus project going. So, we've been back and forth with him for a year now, involving every town department that has to be involved. So, a lot of things are passing us by, and we're in competition to bring some of these tenants in, and you know, we're behind the curve.
Why are they able to move so much more swiftly than we are?
I don't know.
It's just all internally in the town.
No, I mean,
protocols.
I think there's, you know, it's a combination of things, you know, and people, you know, can be resistant to change.
Well, this is a change needed down there for sure, and all the best. Obviously, everybody's rooting, I think, for the town to do something positive down there. Segueing over to you know, something that's semi-similar in nature as far as development's concerned, the town. This is from our friend Wayne, who writes in occasionally. Do we know how many cars go through the square in a day from each direction? When he says the square, I presume he means the Lanny. And at what time of the worst? After all, we paid $30,000. I would have counted for $10,000. I don't know if I understand the question.
I think I get it.
Okay.
I would have counted. In other words, he would have done the car count for $10,000 rather than pay a consultant for
Oh, we paid somebody $30,000 to do a car count.
No, so we've talked about this a lot on the show. So I inherited, obviously, the situation in Columbian Square. We wanted to dust off the 2008 study that the town spent money on with the Cecil Group. First thing we did was an easy thing to do, and that was attack the problem of the parking lot. And I think last show, people asked us about that again. And by the time this airs, the lights will finally be installed. It took a long time for the lights to be delivered, but that phase is done. We did some interim in-house steps, paint the lines, you know, the lane lines down there, which have actually helped out.
Oh, they look great.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of threw that out there as an idea, not thinking that it would actually do much, but it's proven to actually be a little bit effective. And I felt it was necessary to update the 2008 study. A lot's changed. Southfield, Union Point, those kinds of things have impacted the square. Hospital expansion. So we wanted to take that study, update it, and look at, you know, what traffic improvements can be made in the square. We're not spending a lot of town money on this. He cites a figure that might not be accurate exactly, but we did go through a vetting process for consultants. And you know, a lot of times when I sit through these meetings, when we're looking at engineers, consultants, you know, it's okay, great, you know, don't see much of a difference from one to the other. Sometimes you do. In this case, these guys that we hired, I think it's Green Engineering, Green Consulting, they've done some work in other communities that had similar problems. There was a model that we looked at that they worked on in Peabody Square, which had some similar problems as Columbian Square. Now they had some advantages. You know, I think there was a building there they were able to move, but a huge difference in Peabody Square. Like the work that they did, it was one of the things that convinced us to hire them. And the hospital is actually contributing the bulk of the money to the study. So it's not coming out of Mr. Wayne's taxes. I'd love to hire him for 10 grand and have him go up there and sit. Maybe they can hire him as a subcontractor. But I do think that the 2008 data is not applicable, and if we're going to do something definitively, we had to go through this update the traffic study. So that's where we're at.
Is there scuttlebutt or any talk about putting a light there? Or I thought somebody said a rotary.
That's an option.
Might have gone in there at some point.
The 2008 study pretty much ruled the rotary out.
Okay.
And I know these guys are going to look at it again, but the merchants would have lost some on-street parking, and that's the big non-starter for them, is on-street parking. That's a huge problem for them, and the land takings associated with the rotary or the roundabout were too impactful. So that was pretty much off the table.
Okay.
But I think, again, that's part of the review, but I think, again, they'll confirm that. And we do have, by the way, and I wish Wayne got to us earlier, we would have maybe put him on the committee, but there's kind of an advisory committee that's been put together to kind of follow along with this process and weigh in. It's made up of merchants and residents who are immediately in the square area, some of the side streets, and that was just finalized in the last 24 hours. So they'll be part of this process, working with Green Consulting.
All the best. It sounds like it's moving forward.
You could have applied for that, Jim. I think you drive through that square.
I do, but counting cars has never been my nag, to be honest with you. And we thank Wayne for making that offer.
I know you're good to the merchants down there. You partake of a lot of the stuff that the merchants have to offer.
The retailers, I think it's a vital part of our community, needless to say, and all the improvements have been dramatic. I know I say the same thing over and over again, but I mean, aesthetically, to the eye, they look fantastic, and it's definitely made getting in and out of there easier.
I had a slice of pizza, I think I scoffed off of you one time that you purchased in the square that was actually pretty good.
Well, of course, Olympic Pizza is fantastic. Across the street, we have CC's, and then
we order lunch from both those places often.
Lovely.
But I think, well, I'm glad you worked them all in, because I wasn't going to single out which slice of pizza you had that day. It was really good.
And Eric Danubio's got his building that he's just refurbished down there. That looks great too. The one right beside your old election campaign. Wayne, as I say, Eric.
Come out beautiful, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, everything looks great. I think that everything's moving forward nicely. This question's a little longer, so I have to throw my glasses on. It's from Kerry Kolsch.
You know what? I got a hunch.
Oh, here we go.
The last guy was Wayne. Could it be?
Wayne. Oh, Wayne Danubio. Oh,
we didn't
put two and two together.
He may have wanted to have been anonymous. I don't know if that was him or not. We don't know. We don't know if it was.
All right. Well, listen. This one comes from Kerry Kolsch, and she says hello.
If it is him, I'm glad he's watching.
She's got a variety of questions about some things going on in North Weymouth, so I'm going to try to summarize here. She was interested in a number of things, as I said. All improvements to that North Weymouth area. Number one is, have you had any thoughts to improve the beach that borders the Wessagusset Yacht Club? We don't even know the name of the beach since there's no sign for it. And I know it's at the end of my block. It says Pequot Road, so she's wondering if it's got anything to do with Pequot. Also, the beach needs maintenance in the summer. My friend and her baby went with me, and we saw needles in the sand. Ouch, I'm not familiar with that. I'm down there often enough. I don't think I've seen those, but that's terrible. Also, the North Street Municipal parking lot that borders the Wessagusset Yacht Club is in tough shape, needs a street light, she's suggesting. And of course, during the 4th of July, it gets real tough, she's saying, as far as the crowds and the fireworks and things along those lines. And then finally, she says, say no to Spectra and their proposal to pollute the air in Weymouth. We know about North Weymouth's residents and their feelings towards Spectra, but what about just general maintenance as far as the beach and the parking lots and the general area?
No, great question. With spring in the air today, even though it's early March.
We've been lucky.
I think we've done a good job in the 1 year we've been in office in attending to the beach area up there. We've invested in a number of improvements, and I love the part about we don't even know the name of the beach, because I used to get confused, the whole new beach thing.
I was going to say, that's what we call it, the old and the new.
So what's the definitive word, Mary? So you still want to call that Wessagusset, and you got Lane. Right.
That's a word or description that's not used that often.
How did they
George
come up
Lane
with a
Beach.
new? Where's this new? What's the history on new?
They called it the new because it was sand, it had sand put on it after the old beach was.
The new beach, the George Lane Beach? I think the new beach, because the old beach was the focus of swimming lessons, and nobody ever went to that part of the beach until.
I never knew the history of how new came into being.
Yeah, that was because there was only one beach. Nobody actually went to that other one.
So on the new side, yes. Lane Beach, we've invested over there. We've got a machine to clean the sand, which we got great feedback on last year. We invested in that, and then we got a great deal on some new floats for the swimming lessons, which was publicized, and we got some great feedback on that. And
that was a Steve Riley endeavor, wasn't it, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, and DPW put them together and assisted in that. So bottom line was, I'll tell you how this came about. And we actually talked about it on an episode that actually is running right around this time on Mayor's Monthly Forum.
Great.
But the waterfront committee here had been somewhat inactive, and I knew coming into the job a year ago, having represented 8 coastal communities, the town of Weymouth had never sought a Seaport Economic Council grant. And I saw the other 7 towns that I represented seek funding through that entity. So one of the things we did was kind of re-energize the waterfront committee. I said, guys, how come we haven't gone after a Seaport Economic Council grant? Let's do something. Focus on something, zero in on something for us. So they dusted off the waterfront master plan that was done 30 years ago, and there's been different updates done through the years, and identified one project from that that they felt was something we could zero in on and seek the grant out on. So working with Nick Bulens, who handles the grant writing here, our administrative services coordinator.
Who's been on a roll, huh? you guys, it seems like you guys have been getting some great grants when I follow on the Ledger, the Weymouth News.
He's been doing some great work. And
Awesome.
I said in the campaign when I was running in late 2015, I said, I'd like to, see the town go after this stuff, and I'd like to use some of the contacts I have, in the executive branch to kind of go after those.
It's absolutely part of your appeal.
This particular grant that the committee zeroed in on, they went through a vetting process, was a project that was first floated 30 years ago to connect the two beaches, create more access to West Augustet's side because most of the parking's over at Lane, and this program through the council is overseen by the Lieutenant Governor. I had some discussions with her. She was eager for us to submit something. When she was here, we talked about it when we signed the community compact. I said, I'll be coming before you soon. So this year we went, it all happened quickly. We made our presentation in Fall River, I think last month, or January. And we were successful. We got $165,000 to do the feasibility study and design. And in answer to her question, yes, so I think it may end up in a couple of phases. And once we have the engineering work done, that'll allow us to go back before the council to seek maybe some construction funding. We have some funds that are part of community benefit / mitigation from the Seascape project in North Weymouth that we'll be able to apply to that. They've committed $260,000 in various funds for various improvements in North Weymouth, part of it which will be this. And again, I can't give you a definitive what it's going to look like. That's what the engineering and feasibility is done. But the idea is to create a link, whether it's a boardwalk, what have you, between the two beaches. There's a high bank there. It'll involve some coastal embankment protection. Right now you've got serious erosion, which is affecting people's backyards up there. So that's the goal. And we think it's a great public benefit if we can pull it off, depending upon how the feasibility study comes out. We definitely are aware of the parking lot issue. It's something that we got to talk about with the district councilor and some other folks. It could use some improvements, definitely. We agree with her there, and it's on our radar screen. We have some other improvements on the Lane side that we think are coming. We had someone step up to the plate that wanted to make a private contribution to fix up the basketball court. So we were looking into whether or not there's room for a tot lot over there that would go hand in hand with that. And that would be funded by Seascape as part of that package. So a lot of improvements. All the stuff we talked about thus far are not done in any impact to the bottom line of your tax bill because it's either grants or private contributions so far. And it's part of the capital spending plan anyway that doesn't impact the operating budget. So we're trying to move forward with a lot of the stuff as best we can in a very economical fashion, which we're doing.
Well, things can always be better, I suppose, but I think things are pretty good down there if you connect real estate prices to that area. I see Regatta Road posted semi-regularly, and I can't believe the rates that they're getting down there. So it's a healthy side.
One of the abutters to the project we just talked about just paid 1 penny under $1 million for the house, $999,099.
Yeah, well, that's good stuff. That's good stuff for all of us in Weymouth, needless to say. Hey, we want to remind everybody.
By the way, we met with that particular abutter who likes this project. I know we're hearing from a couple of directly impacted abutters that are asking some questions thus far, but we got some good feedback from at least one of the residents there. I was excited.
Good to hear.
So.
Well, we want to remind everybody, keep the questions coming in at askmayorbob@gmail.com. Once again, askmayorbob@gmail.com. Of course, you can always reach out to the mayor via his Facebook page. We're wrapping up another episode of Ask the Mayor, but I've got one question for you as spring shines through the windows here with this wonderful sunlight. Prognosticate for us, the Red Sox, 2017. What do you think?
I think on paper, they'll probably win the division.
Yeah, people are saying World Series.
The dysfunctional, schizophrenic performances of the last 5 years, who knows? Last to first, back to last, who knows? My sleeper team for 2017, Philadelphia Phillies, watch.
Oh, wait now, Philadelphia
In terms
Phillies.
of exceeding expectations.
Well, there you go. Well, listen, once again, keep the questions coming at askmayorbob@gmail.com. I know I speak for the mayor when I say thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
If If you have a question, please email the mayor at askmayorbob@gmail.com. That's askmayorbob@gmail.com. Maybe your question will be answered on the next episode of Ask the Mayor.